Good morning, everyone. I'm Rachita Gupta from the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice. I publicly declare that I have no conflicts of interest in relation to the fossil fuel industry or other polluting industries, and I invite others to declare the same. We are holding this press conference to demand a global energy embargo on the genocidal apartheid state of Israel. And why are we demanding it? Because this continuous fossil fuel supply to Israel is what is fueling its genocide against the Palestinian population. This genocide is violence on every single scale, including ecocide. More than 100,000 tons of bombs have been dropped on Gaza, and its carbon footprint is massive, but none of the military emissions are ever included in the UNFCCC reporting. The research shows that long-term climate costs of Israel's military destruction in Gaza and recent military exchanges with Yemen, Iran, and Lebanon is equivalent to running 84 gas power plants for a year. By April 2025, over 80% of Gaza's total cropland area has been damaged. So to expand more on this demand for energy embargo, we have a very powerful panelist lineup today, and we'll start with Rula Shadid from the Palestinian Institute for Public Diplomacy.
Thank you very much. No climate justice without Palestinian liberation. As we have heard from my colleague, more than 100,000 tons of bombs have been dropped on Gaza, exceeding the total amount of explosives used in World War II. Let that sink in a little bit. More than what have been dropped in World War II. Over 55,000 Palestinians, brothers and sisters, were brutally killed. And this comes with a very heavy heart to say. These are not only numbers. These are our families and our friends and our relatives who have lost their lives in a brutal manner in this genocide, in this ecocide, in this brutal, unprecedented tragedy that we are facing in Palestine, not only in Gaza, but also in the entire Palestinian land and against all Palestinians within Palestine and outside of Palestine. Energy exports are not a neutral form of trade. Coal, crude oil, and other energy sources are being used in Palestine as tools of oppression to sustain Israel's colonial regime of illegal occupation, of genocide, of apartheid. It is powering military vehicles, arms production, and Israel's murderous AI infrastructure. Water companies, on the other hand, and agribusiness, who claim to be at the forefront of sustainability, instead facilitate, profit from, and greenwash brutal settler-colonial occupation using the language of sustainability and climate justice. As environmental, climate, and social justice movements and organizations preparing for the COP30 and mobilize to confront the disaster of global climate change, we Palestinian environmental and grassroots organizations, justice movements, and civil society coalitions urgently call solidarity, ending complicity, and action for meaningful accountability that place Palestinian demands and liberation at the heart of these mobilizations. We ask for 3 key practical steps to be taken in order to translate the sentiments of support, which is very important and very needed for our people in Palestine and outside, that they know that we're not alone, and for this support to be translated into proper actions and also address the intersectionality between climate justice and Palestinian liberation. So what are those very clear demands that we also invite everyone and urge everyone in the social movement, environmental movement, civil society, and all our partners, our true partners that understands what suffering is, to be joining us to do. So 1, join the call for a global energy embargo for Palestine. How do you do that? You demand that the COP30 host government, Brazil, and all crude oil and refined products exports to Israel. You mobilize locally, especially in the US, Colombia, Brazil, South Africa, Azerbaijan, Nigeria, Italy, Cyprus, Greece, to demand the end to the transfer of coal, crude oil, and petroleum to Israel, and pressuring energy corporations that are most implicit in supplying Israel during the genocide. Mobilize locally in Jordan, Egypt, and the EU, and other countries to demand an end to gas purchases from Israel and organize against those companies. The second demand, build a global coalition to end water apartheid. Mobilizing locally, especially in Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Azerbaijan, Morocco, Cyprus, Bahrain, and India, to terminate all agreements and collaborations on water projects with the Israeli company Mekorot. The Israeli war company is responsible for creating and maintaining water apartheid, and it is responsible for shutting off water to Gaza. And it prevents, and to ask for these countries to prevent signing any new agreements. Mekorot is, by the way, listed in the UN database of corporations involved in illegal business in Israeli colonial settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories as well. Water defenders at COP30, we urge you to include water apartheid in your advocacy, connecting with Palestinian groups working on the defense of water and mobilizing around this critical issue as part of the global struggle for water justice that we are all part of. Demand number 3, build and unite behind a global call to end the enabling and greenwashing of Israel's genocide, apartheid, and illegal occupation by agribusiness. Farmers, peasants, food sovereignty movements, and all those resisting the environmental, land, cultural, and livelihood destruction of big agriculture corporations, taking up and amplifying the call to end agribusiness complicity in illegal ethnic cleansing and occupation of Palestinian lands. Mobilize locally across the globe to divest from Netafim and terminate all agreements and collaborations with this agribusiness company alongside other agri-tech companies. Finally, mobilize locally against any corporation with Israeli corporations exporting agrotoxics, including Adama and ICL Group, which export chemical pesticides that destroy the land and endanger the lives of farmers and consumers, sourced from pillaged Palestinian natural resources and tested on Palestinian occupied lands. At a time when climate justice demands radical and systematic transformation through international solidarity, we call on you to include the above demands in all your communications, to take practical actions towards realizing them, and to reach out to Palestinian grassroots environmental organizations to build these campaigns together. Over the past 20 months, millions of Palestinians in occupied Palestine, particularly in Gaza, have endured the most extreme conditions of starvation, genocide, ecocide, ethnic cleansing, massacres, and torture. And believe me, it is not easy to say those as a Palestinian, but we are enduring that. And today, we have to do everything we can to stop this insanity against my people and yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rula, for sharing those powerful demands with us. We now move to Ana Sanchez from the Global Energy Embargo for Palestine.
Thank you. Rula made it very clear. There is no climate justice without Palestinian liberation. The call for a global energy embargo is a call for justice. Israel is using energy as a tool of oppression, as a tool of control. Israel has cut the electricity and all power in Gaza for more than 20 months already. Not having electricity means not being able to have a light during the night, But it also means not having running hospitals, not having access to clean water, not sewage system. It means not having the power to sustain life, because this is what Israel is doing with energy, control, apartheid, and oppression, is making life completely impossible for Palestinians, not only in Gaza, but in the entire Palestinian land. They constantly denied permits for ensuring the Palestinians' right to electricity and power. They destroy all the energy infrastructures, solar panels that in many occasions are funded by money, by European taxpayer money. The EU is also deeply complicit in normalizing energy relations with Israel by importing gas that is coming through pipelines that are crossing illegally occupied Palestinian lands. This complicity must stop. Colombian coal, South African coal is being used to power and sustain the illegal occupation of Palestine, and the International Court of Justice made very clear on its advisory opinion that rendering assistance to the illegal occupation of Palestine is a war crime. Exporting coal, South Africa, Colombia, and other countries exporting coal are complicit in these war crimes and are helping into sustaining this illegal regime of settler colonialism. Brazil keeps exporting the crude oil that is fueling the ongoing genocide in Palestine. The US keeps exporting jet fuel and arming Israel and powering their genocidal machinery. This complicity needs to stop. Again, the call for energy embargo is a call for justice. In addition, all these commodities, these energy exports are not magically, they don't magically appear in Israel. They are transported via maritime transfers that have an enormous impact in accelerating the climate emergency. So again, this is about climate justice. The Palestinian liberation struggle is a struggle for climate justice for all. And here, again, we are calling on all states to impose a global energy embargo, to stop being complicit in assisting this ongoing regime of settler colonialism, apartheid, and genocide. Global energy embargo now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna. We'll finally hear from Sinead Magner from Women and Gender Constituency.
Thank you. I publicly declare that I have no conflict of interest within this space. I do not engage with the fossil fuel or Zionist lobbies. So today we stand at the intersection of multiple crises that demand our urgent attention and action. For over 20 months, Israel has waged a genocidal war against Palestinians in Gaza, and UN experts have termed this not only genocide, but herbicide, scholasticide, medicide, cultural genocide, and more recently, ecocide. Rula spoke about the more than 100,000 tons of bombs that have been dropped on Gaza, more than all the explosives used in World War II. The carbon footprint of the first 15 months of Israel's attack on Gaza exceeds the annual global emissions of more than 100 individual countries. Israeli negotiators sit in these rooms telling us all about their greenwashed mitigation, as their military emissions alone make them the fourth largest emitter in the world, funded by the EU, funded by the US, funded by Germany, where we sit right now. This is disgusting. These massive military emissions are not even counted in UNFCCC climate reporting. It makes invisible one of the most significant sources of environmental destruction on our planet. And what we are witnessing in Palestine is not collateral environmental damage. It is the deliberate weaponization of ecological destruction as a tool of genocide. Heavy metals from rockets, unexploded munitions, and depleted uranium have contaminated Palestinian topsoil and groundwater and will create long-term impacts that will poison the land for generations. By April 2025, over 80% of Gaza's total cropland area had been damaged. Israel's use of white phosphorus bombs, prohibited under international law, will have social, health, and environmental consequences that extend far beyond the immediate violence. And I ask you, would people who are truly indigenous to a land do this to their land? And I think we all know the answer to that. But the environmental warfare began long before October 2023. Since 1967, Israel has systematically destroyed over 800,000 Palestinian olive trees, and these represent Palestinian rootedness and resilience. And some of these trees, which are over 5,000 years old, are more than agriculture. They are the foundation of Palestinian culture and identity and survival. Almost half of all the cultivated land in the West Bank and Gaza is planted with approximately 10 million olive trees, supporting between 80,000 and 100,000 Palestinian families. And when Israeli forces and settlers burn these groves or uproot these trees, they are not just trying to destroy agriculture, they are trying to sever the spiritual, cultural, and economic lifelines that bind Palestinians to their land. Rula also spoke about water as a weapon of apartheid. And in Gaza, water apartheid has reached catastrophic proportions. By April 2023, let's take note of the date, April 2023. 96% of household water in Gaza was considered undrinkable due to Israeli-imposed restrictions, contamination, and manufactured overcrowding that forces rapid aquifer depletion. Palestinians are systematically denied permits to drill wells, deepen existing ones, or even collect rainwater, and when they build rainwater collection systems, Israeli forces destroy them. And we must connect these Palestinian experiences to the broader crisis of militarism and climate change. Despite military spending reaching record levels of $2.44 trillion in 2023, this investment has not created security, but diverted crucial resources from climate action while fueling destruction across the globe. When we ask, how will we fund climate action, we say, why is there always money for destruction, always money for war, never money for climate action? And companies like Netafim position themselves as leaders in sustainable agriculture while they facilitate the expropriation of illegally occupied Palestinian land and enable theft of Palestinian water. And this represents the most cynical form of greenwashing, adopting the colonial slogan of making the desert bloom while systematically destroying indigenous agricultural systems that have sustained life for millennia. And while there's an ongoing campaign to have ecocide recognized in and of itself as a crime under the Rome Statute, which we support, what we are documenting in Palestine already constitutes environmental crimes under international law. These systematic acts of environmental destruction constitute inhumane acts under the Rome Statute because they inflict such great suffering and serious injury to mental and physical health, knowing that such actions would result in this harm. For Palestinians who are indigenous to this land, the environment is not separate from their being. It is the foundation of culture, spiritual life, livelihoods, and well-being. The deliberate contamination of air, water, and soil, combined with environmental vandalism, like the burning of olive groves, represents a severe deprivation of the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. At a time when climate justice demands radical systemic transformation through international solidarity, we cannot separate Palestinian liberation from environmental justice. The same systems destroying our planet are the ones powering Israel's genocidal machine. The same governments and corporations profiting from the socioeconomic order that forces millions into exile and poverty are complicit in this environmental warfare. There is no such thing as greening apparatuses of oppression, death, and destruction. There can be no climate justice without Palestinian liberation, and we call on all who claim commitment to environmental and climate justice to move beyond this rhetoric, to concrete action, to build collective resistance to genocide, apartheid, and ecocide, because these are linked, you cannot separate them. The Palestinian people, despite enduring the most extreme and brutal conditions of starvation, genocide, ecocide, ethnic cleansing, and torture, remain committed to the struggle for self-determination, ending occupation and apartheid, and the return of refugees to their homes and lands. We count on global solidarity to support this struggle, not just with words, but with material pressure to stop Israel's war machine and dismantle its illegal regime. Our liberation is bound together. Our planet's future depends on our courage to act, and the time for climate justice through Palestinian liberation is now.
Thank you so much, Shanae. We have time for like a couple of questions if we have any from the floor. If any journalists want to ask questions, please identify yourself or anyone else from the floor.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is May Kennedy. I'm with We Act for Environmental Justice based in Harlem, New York City. There's a growing frustration with the UN system with multilateralism for reasons you explained and for the lack of progress in just climate negotiations in general. And I'm wondering if anyone can speak to other modes of action through, whether that's continued through the UN system, through regional agreements. You spoke about local mobilizations, but especially as someone from the US, I would love to hear your perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think you're doing it. It's a complementary situation. We all have a role, and each one of us has a certain capacity and a certain amount of knowledge and a certain amount of willingness and into how to act towards actions that will hold the Israeli colonial actions and the Israeli colonial state accountable. So yes, mobilization is very important. Movements on the ground and the knowledge that we need to share to people around us, we all can be ambassadors of justice. We all can be ambassadors of turning the sympathy of people and their sentiments of support into action. That is what we can do, and this is our strength as people who know. Because first, we start with the knowledge to people. And then, once they know about what's going on, I think any human being that believes in human rights and human dignity will want to do something. Okay, so how do we use that? How do we ask people to be in solidarity, in true solidarity? And people can do whatever they can, and we need to offer them these spaces. Now, in relation to the UN, I think we need to continue pushing, because this is unfortunately the only system at the moment. However, there are different other parallel systems that are starting to grow. We can see that, for example, the BRICS is becoming a new global bloc that is very important as well. We engage with them in different spheres. We have also just recently, on the 31st of January, there was the inauguration of the Hague Group, which is a group of 9 states, today there are 8 actually, that have come together to emphasize on the need of action towards holding the Israeli occupation state accountable for its actions. They have a very clear demand that is out there, and we do invite states that want to break away from the inefficiency of the UN and the inefficiency of other spaces to join a different space that is actually calling for justice, and it has one of its biggest incentives is to stand in solidarity with others, because they believe that in solidarity you mean you're also achieving your own goals of justice, and you don't want to accept such a threshold that is happening in Palestine, because that would mean that this threshold would anytime also be applicable on your own people, especially in the global majority, especially against the people of oppression and people of color. So there are several ways to act, and I think it's important to keep in mind all of these, but also to always remember that while we are speaking now, most likely we have lost tens of Palestinians. And it's really important to not normalize the situation, to not treat it as a situation where, business as usual. So thank you for your question, thank you for your interest, and I do trust that you and our solidarity movement will continue to act until liberation. Finally, I just want to say that the demands that I've shared is actually available on the Global Energy Embargo Coalition page, and it's also shared on the PIPD.com website. So I do invite everyone to take a look at it and disseminate it as widely as you can.
I'd like just to add something to complement Rula's response. And I think something that is very clear is that what we are witnessing right now in Palestine is it has been described as a humanitarian crisis, a crisis of humanity, but I think it's also a crisis of democracy. We are seeing thousands of people protesting in the streets for over 20 months, while the state keeps silent. no effective measures were taken, no sanctions were imposed, and that's something that should be awakening people and calling on their own governments to really, what are we talking about when we are talking about democracy in Europe or in the global north? Is this real democracy when people are really outraged, are sick of seeing people being massacred with no actions? And I think that's something that we should take very seriously, because the international protection system, it has lost all the legitimacy it had. And when we are talking and seeing that, when we say that the Palestinian struggle is also a struggle against colonialism, we need to emphasize that we need to decolonize the international protection mechanisms. We need to decolonize the UN. It is not admissible any longer that the main colonial powers have a veto power in the UN Security Council. We cannot accept that any longer, and we should relate to our internal democracies and hold them responsible for all this complicity in this outrageous ongoing genocide. And that's something that I think should be very present also in our conversations, because we do have the power to act. We've been told that this is something too big, too enormous, that we are somehow, our resistance is meaningless. But that's not true. We cannot lose our power and our capacity to keep dreaming about justice for all. And that's, I think, the power that we have as people, and our collective power should be join the voices of the Palestinian people for justice, freedom, and liberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for joining us. Please join us tomorrow as well for our next daily press conference.